All right, what's up, guys? Today we are going over Seneca's moral letter to Lucilius, letter 45. This is on sophistical argumentation, and this is a fairly long one, so we'll go through this here together. He says in verse 1, "You complain that in your part of the world there is a scant supply of books, but it is quality rather than quantity that matters. A limited list of reading benefits. A varied assortment serves only for delight. He who would arrive at the appointed end must follow a single road and not wander through many ways. What you suggest is not traveling, it is mere tramping." So he's saying, Lucius is kind of complaining that there's not enough books, and he's saying it doesn't matter. You don't need quantity. It's a quality that matters. And if you have a variety, it's only for delight, but for real reading benefits, you want to stick to a few of the really good books. And he's saying that what you're doing is you're wandering. If you want to pick one path and go down that path, not wander all these different paths. All right. In verse 2, he says, "But you say, I should rather have you give me advice than books. Still, I am ready to send you all the books I have to ransack the whole storehouse. If it were possible, I should join you there myself. And were it not for the hope that you will soon complete your term of office, I should have imposed upon myself this old man's journey. No Scylla or Charybdis or their storied straits could have frightened me away. I should not only have crossed over, but should have been willing to swim over those waters, provided I could greet you and judge in your presence how much you have grown in spirit." Okay, so Seneca and Lucilius are apart, right? As I said, Lucilius is in Sicily, okay? And he's saying that he had said, "I should rather you give me advice than books," and Seneca's saying, "Yeah, I would. I'm ready to. I'm ready to send you all the books that I have. But if it were possible, I would just join you there. That would be the best thing, right?" So he says in verse 3, "Your desire, however, that I should dispatch to you my own writings does not make me think myself learned any more than a request for my picture would flatter my beauty. I know that it is due to your charity rather than your judgment." And even if it is the result of judgment, it was charity that forced the judgment upon you. So he's being a little bit humble here and saying that, the fact that you're asking for my writings doesn't make me think that I'm so special. I'm so learned. Okay, any more than if you asked for my picture, that it would make me feel more beautiful. Okay, but he's saying that it's either charity, you're just being kind, or your judgment is a result of charity that's been forced upon you, right? So let's move on. He says, verse 4, "But whatever the quality of my works may be, read them as if I were still seeking and were not aware of the truth and were seeking it obstinately too. For I have sold myself to no man. I bear the name of no master. I give much credit to the judgment of great men, but I claim something also for my own. For those men, too, have left to us not positive discoveries, but problems whose solution is still to be sought. They might perhaps have discovered the essentials had they not sought the superfluous also." So he's saying here that, look, his own writing, okay, whatever his works is, all right, don't read them as if I know all the answers, okay? In fact, read them as if I'm not even aware of what the truth is, and I'm still seeking it out as well. Okay, because he's saying that I'm not selling myself to anyone. I don't have a master. I don't believe in what one person says, but I do give credit to good men who are wise in what they said. But I also claim my own philosophy, what I have to say about things. Okay, because he's saying that a lot of these guys, not only did they discover a lot of things, but they also create a lot of problems. Okay, they created problems, or they found problems whose solution is still not found. We don't know the solution for that yet. Okay, and he's saying that maybe they discovered the essentials, but had they not sought superfluous things also, then they might have discovered more, right? So essentially, what he's saying is he's saying, like, don't just accept what I'm saying or what else someone else is saying as gospel, right? It's better to realize that we're all kind of just figuring this out. And the reason why he says that is because he doesn't want him to get caught up and think that he just needs to recite what the answers are, because the answers are already out there, instead of searching on his own. And verse 5, he says, "They lost much time in quibbling about words and in called argumentation. All that sort of thing exercises the wit to no purpose. We tie knots and bind up words and double meanings and then try to untie them. So he's saying that there's a lot of mumbo jumbo. There's a lot of like debating about these things that are really not the point. And so that caused a lot of a lot of confusion and wasted a lot of time. He says, we have leisure enough. Have we leisure enough for this? Do we already know how to live or die? We should rather proceed with our whole souls toward the point where it is our duty to take heed lest things as well as words deceive us. So he's saying, like, look, do we even have time to do this stuff? Do we have time to argue and to make it, to waste our time? Like, if you don't know how to die already or even how to live, then perhaps we shouldn't be wasting our time on these things, right? He says, 6, why pray? Do you discriminate between similar words when nobody is ever deceived by them except during the discussion? It is things that lead us astray. It is between things that you must discriminate. We embrace evil instead of good. We pray for something opposite to that which we have prayed for in the past. Our prayers clash with our prayers, our plans with our plans. So he's saying that, look, people debate over stupid stuff that is only relevant in that debate where, maybe some particular word or the way that's being used, it's only misunderstood by the people in that debate, but not to the general people reading it. It still makes sense. So, we're picking on these trivial things. He's saying that, we pray for things, but then the things that we pray for, they are different than what we prayed for. We're not constant, right? What we prayed for last week, right? He says that our prayers clash with our prayers, our plans with our plans. So we're constantly making new plans, right? We're being unstable. He says then in verse 7, how close flattery resembles friendship. It not only apes friendship, but outdoes it, passing it in the race. With wide open and indulgent ears, it is welcomed and sinks to the depths of the heart, and it is pleasingly precisely where it does harm. And it is pleasingly precisely where it does harm. Show me how I may be able to see through this resemblance. An enemy comes to me full of compliments in the guise of a friend. Vices creep into our hearts under the name of virtues. Rashness lurks beneath the appellation of bravery. Moderation is called sluggishness, and the coward is regarded as prudent. There is great danger if we go astray in these matters, so stamp them with special labels. So here he's making a really good point, and he's saying that, look, flattery, it looks like friendship. In fact, people like it more. It apes friendship, okay? It outdoes it, all right? And he's saying that because people welcome it, it sinks into the depths of their heart and exactly where it does harm. Right, which is why he refused it, right? Where he said, look, you can say that my writings are so good, but I know that they're not. All right, I know I have a accurate estimation of myself. Just because you're giving me flattery doesn't mean I'm taking it. I'm not allowing it in. And the danger of it is that it will make you think that you're better than you are. Right? The danger of it is that you'll be deceived by it. You'll be attracted to that flattery. Right? And he says also, look, an enemy, it comes to you full of compliments, okay, in the guise of a friend. So be wary of that. When someone comes to you with a lot of compliments, they're flattering you. You know they're not sincere. You know that they're just saying things that you want to hear. That's an enemy. He says vices creep in your hearts under the name of virtues, right? So you think that you're doing good, but it's actually a bad thing. Someone's disguised that way, or you've tricked yourself into believing that this is a good thing when you know it's not, okay? Rashness lurks beneath the appellation of bravery. Right, so you're calling it brave, but it's actually rashness. Right, so he's saying that be aware of these things, and make sure that you stamp them with a special name, a special label, so that you know to avoid these things. That you're aware that this is the way that things happen. In verse 8, he says, then too, the man who is asked whether he has horns on his head is not such a fool as to feel for them on his forehead, nor again so silly or dense that you can persuade him by means of argumentation, no matter how subtle, that he does not know the facts. Such quibbles are just as harmlessly deceptive as the juggler's cup and dice, in which it is the very trickery that pleases me. But show me how the trick is done, and I have lost my interest therein. And I hold the same opinion about these tricky wordplays, for by what other name can one call such sophistries? Not to know them does no harm, and mastering them does no good. Okay, so what he's saying here is that if you were to ask a man whether he has horns on his head, okay, he's not going to be like, Oh, do I? He knows he doesn't. Okay. It's silly. It's ridiculous. Okay. And he's saying that these arguments that a lot of these people are making, they're also silly. They're ridiculous. It doesn't matter. Right. It's just like he's saying such quibbles are just as harmlessly deceptive as a juggler's cup and dice. That they seem like they're good, but when you see a magician performing magic tricks, okay, when you don't know what it is, then it pleases you, right? But as soon as you know what the trick is done, how the trick is done, you've lost interest in it. It's no longer magical. And it's the same thing about these word plays that people are doing, and they're debating these things that don't matter, okay? And he's saying that it doesn't even matter, like how if you didn't know it, then it wouldn't harm you. And if you did, it doesn't do you any good. So what's the point? What's the point of stuff that debating these things? And you could really follow this to our arguments on the internet about all this stupid stuff, right? You know, you see it every time some political thing happens or some person does something or it gets in the news or whatever, it becomes a debate. And then all these people make all these arguments about this thing and what they should do and how you should think this way and how you should feel this way. There's no action and it doesn't matter. It's a waste of time. So don't waste your time with that stuff, because it really doesn't matter, all right? It's not going to do you any good. It's not going to do you any harm. In verse 9, he says, at any rate, if you wish to sift doubtful meanings of this kind, teach us that the happy man is not he whom the crowd deems happy, namely he into whose coffers mighty sums have flowed, but he who possesses our all in his soul, who is upright and exalted, who spurns inconstancy, who sees no man with whom he wishes to change places, who rates men only at their value as men, who takes nature for his teacher, conforming to her laws and living as she commands, whom no violence can deprive of his possessions, who turns evil into good, is unerring in judgment, unshaken, unafraid, who may be moved by force but never moved to distraction, whom fortune, when she hurls at him with all her might, the deadliest missile in her armory, may graze, though rarely, but never wound. For fortune's other missiles, with which she vanquishes mankind in general, rebound from such a one like hail which rattles on the roof with no harm to the dweller therein, and then melts away. Okay, so this is perhaps one of the most powerful verses, okay, of what is a happy man, what is a wise man. All right, and so let's kind of break this down and what are the things that he says. Okay, he says that a happy man is not a man whom the crowd deems happy. Okay, so just because the crowd thinks you're good or happy is not the case. Okay, and he's not the one who has a lot of money. Okay, but he is the one whose possessions are all in his soul, in his character, and who he is. Okay, he's upright and exalted. He spurns inconstancy, so not being consistent. Okay. He sees no man with whom he wishes to change places, so he's not jealous. He doesn't want something that someone else has. He is glad where he is. He rates men only at their value as men, so he doesn't see their fortune. He doesn't see the money that they make. He doesn't see their class. He doesn't see their status. He just sees who they are as a man. Right? He's not impressed by people. He doesn't have celebrity. What do you call it? He's not starstruck. Okay. He takes nature for his teacher. Okay. So he what nature shows him, the reality of the world, conforming to her laws and living as she commands. Okay. So again, what does nature command? To have food, to have water, to have shelter. That's it. Okay. No violence can deprive him of his possessions, meaning that his true possessions are in himself. So no one can steal them because it doesn't matter, because that he doesn't value the money. He doesn't value the other things. He turns evil into good, is unerring in judgment, unshaken, unafraid. And he's saying he can be moved by force, but never moved to distraction. So you can push him, but you can't make him go off of his focus. And he says, whom fortune, when she hurls at him with all her might, the deadliest missile in an army, it could graze, but rarely, but it'll never wound. He's not going to allow anything to wound him. All right. And then he's saying that the other missiles that she sends that just destroy people in general, rebound like hail just bouncing off a rooftop. Okay. With no harm. So think about being that kind of person. It means that you're not harmed. It means that you don't allow people to harm you. All right. It means that you are constant, that you're unchanging, right? It means that you're not jealous. It means that you that you only value the things of who you are as a person, what you possess in your soul, not the external things. And you don't flatter people. You don't bow to power or wealth. He says in verse 10, why do you bore me with that which yourself call the liar fallacy, about which so many books have been written? Come now. Suppose that my whole life is a lie. Prove that to be wrong, and if you are sharp enough, bring that back to the truth. At present, it holds things to be essential, of which the greater part is superfluous. And even that which is not superfluous is of no significance in respect to its power of making one fortunate and blessed. For if a thing be necessary, it does not follow that it is a good. Either else we degrade the meaning of good if we apply that name to bread and barley, porridge, and other commodities without which we cannot live. Okay. So he's saying here that he's picking on a philosophical argument. This he's saying you bore me with that which you yourself call the liar fallacy. So whatever this thing that they're debating, right? Again, this is why he probably went off on this tangent, was because what does this matter? Okay, he's saying there's a lot of books that have been written about it. A lot of people have talked about this. Okay, so let's suppose my whole life is a lie. Prove that to be wrong if you're sharp enough. Okay, bring it back to the truth, right? Let's actually have something come about this. Let's not just have some kind of philosophy that's based on some stupidity that doesn't matter. All right, he's saying, at present, it holds things to be essential, of which the greater part is superfluous, right? So he's saying that's the problem with it. It's saying that this particular argument is just it contains stuff that it's actually superfluous, but it's saying that they're essential. It doesn't matter, okay? And even that which is necessary is not superfluous, is no significance in respect to its power of making one fortunate and blessed, okay? So he's saying that even that which is not too much, okay, it's still no significance in respect to making you fortunate and blessed, okay? And he's saying that if a thing's necessary, it's not a good. It doesn't mean that it's a good, okay? Otherwise, we're going to start to degrade what it means to be good, right? We need bread and barley. We need food and water. We need commodities. That doesn't make them goods. That just makes them essential. That is part of nature. In verse 11, he says, the good must in every case be necessary, but that which is necessary is not in every case a good. Since certain very paltry things are indeed necessary, no one is to such an extent ignorant of that noble meaning of the word good as to debase it to that level of these humdrum utilities. Okay, so what he's saying here is he's saying that in order for something to be a good, it must be in every case necessary, okay? But just because something's necessary in all cases does not make it a good, okay? But all goods are necessary. Not all things that are necessary are good, okay? Because you can have very paltry things, very little things that are necessary, and no one is going to think that, okay, these are a good, right? Some basic thing. He's saying then in verse 12, what then? Shall you not rather transfer your efforts to making it clear to all men that the search for the superfluous means a great outlay of time, and that many have gone through life merely accumulating the instruments of life? Consider individuals, survey men in general. There is none whose life does not look forward to the morrow. So what he's saying here is he's saying, look, okay, shouldn't you tell men, instead of these silly arguments that you're making, that the search for things that you don't need, the superfluous things, okay, is going to waste a lot of your time, and that a lot of people have gone through their life just merely accumulating instruments of life, okay? He's saying, look, think about men in general. Think about people. If you survey them, there's not one person that doesn't look towards tomorrow, right? They're not happy now. They're looking for tomorrow. They're looking for something else in the future to make them happy. And verse 13, he says, what harm is there in this, you ask? Infinite harm, for such persons do not live, but are preparing to live. They postpone everything. Even if we paid strict attention, life would soon get ahead of us. But as we are now, life finds us lingering and passes us by as if it belonged to another. And though it ends on the final day, it perishes every day. So he's saying, like, look, what's the harm of this? I'll tell you what the harm is, okay? The harm is this, is that if you're looking for tomorrow, you're not living now. You're preparing to live. You're like, when I get that job, when I get that promotion, when I make that money, when I get that girlfriend, when I get whatever it is that's going to make me happy, then I'll live, okay? But that's never going to become the case. You're postponing everything, okay? If you paid strict attention, life would soon get ahead of us. But as we are now, life, it finds us lingering and passes us by as if it belonged to another. So our life is going by while we're waiting to live it, okay? And even though it ends on the final day, it's perishing. You're losing it every single day. And then he says, but I must not exceed the bounds of a letter which ought not to fill a reader's left hand. So I shall postpone to another day our case against the hair splitters, those over subtle fellows who make argumentation supreme instead of subordinate. Farewell. Right. So again, he's summing it up and he's saying, look, I'm done. I'm not going to write too much. We'll talk about this later. But these guys are hair splitters. Okay. They're making argumentation the thing instead of the actual thing. And that's not what you should be doing. And don't listen to these guys. All right. That's it for today. We'll see you tomorrow.